My husband once threw me down a flight of stairs after beating me for 3 hours straight. I woke up 2 days later in the hospital with 6 ribs cracked and my face so swollen I could hardly open my eyes. That's when I found out he had run off with the woman next door. The same neighbor who used to wave at me with a sweet smile every morning. Hello, my darlings. My name is Margaret Lee, though most people just call me Grandma Maggie. I'm 73 years old, born and raised in a little town in coal country, Pikeville, Kentucky. But I've spent the last 40 years in Louisville, and it's here that I'm finally ready to share the story I've kept locked inside me. A story I've never told out loud, not even once until today. Before I dive in, I want to say something. The Grandparents' Tales channel is celebrating 10,000 subscribers, and we're doing a $200 giveaway. It still amazes me that so many of you want to hear this old lady's memories. To join, all you have to do is subscribe, hit the little bell so you don't miss a video like this one, and leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, a little bit about yourself, or maybe share a beautiful story. I'd love to know who my virtual grandchildren really are. Now let's begin. I was born in 1951 in a small weathered house out in Pikeville. My father, Charles, worked deep in the coal mines. Every evening he came home with black dust clinging to his hair and skin, so thick it almost looked like snow. As a girl, I thought it was magical. As a woman, I know now it was poison slowly stealing his lungs. My mother, Eleanor, washed laundry for neighbors and baked the kind of bread folks in town still talk about. We had little money, but I never once felt poor. Our home had warmth, laughter, and love. We shared 2 bedrooms, one for my parents, the other for me and my 2 sisters. The kitchen had a wood-burning stove that never seemed to go out. Out back stood our little garden, packed with apple, peach, and cherry trees, and rows of vegetables my mother tended like they were roses in a queen's garden. My childhood smelled like fresh bread and coffee. It sounded like a scratchy little battery radio playing Elvis Presley, while my mother hummed along. It looked like her flower print dress spinning as she swept the floor and the endless stretch of blue Kentucky sky. My mama used to tell me, "Margaret, when you find yourself a man, make sure he looks at you the way your daddy looks at me." And it was true. My father adored her. Even after a 12-hour shift underground, he'd come home, slip his arms around her waist while she cooked, press a kiss to her forehead, and ask about her day. A man who respects you respects everything about you. He'd remind me when he caught me staring at the love stories in magazines. I grew up believing love was supposed to be like that, simple, gentle, full of small gestures. I thought all men were like my father. School was nearly an hour's walk away, but I didn't mind. I loved learning, dreamed of becoming a teacher, and devoured every book I could get my hands on. My father encouraged me endlessly. "Education's the only thing nobody can ever take from you," he'd say. In 1970, I graduated from teacher training school at 19, the first in my family to earn a diploma. I'll never forget how my father tried to hide his tears that day, dabbing his eyes with the back of his rough hand. That one tear meant more than a speech ever could. I started teaching right away, in a little school with a single room of kids between 7 and 10. Their excitement over learning a new word filled me with pride. For the first time, I felt like I truly mattered. And then I met David. He came to the school one afternoon to enroll his nephew. He was tall, dark-haired, with polished shoes, a pressed button-down, and a neat little mustache. He wasn't rich, but he carried himself with confidence. "Are you the teacher?" he asked with a grin that made my face flush. "Yes, I'm Margaret Lee. Pleased to meet you." "The pleasure's mine," he said, taking my hand in a firm, warm shake. "David Carter." After that, he seemed to appear every afternoon to pick up his nephew. Always smiling. Always dressed sharp. Always with a compliment ready. "Miss Lee, you're radiant when you teach. That dress looks like it was made just for you." I've always admired a woman with intelligence. Me, a small-town girl who'd never dated, fell for it all. Each word watered the garden of my daydreams. Every glance sent my heart racing. One day he asked me if I'd like to grab an ice cream. Nervous but excited, I said yes. My mother warned me, "Be careful. Handsome men usually know they're handsome." "But Mama," I argued. "He's been so respectful. He hasn't even tried to hold my hand." "Not yet," she replied, her voice heavy with experience. "But who listens to their mother when their heart is thumping like a drum?" That ice cream date was perfect. David was charming, clever, and funny. He worked at a furniture store in town and told me he dreamed of running his own business one day. "I want to provide comfort for my future wife," he said, his eyes making it clear who he meant. From then on, he came around regularly. Sundays at our house, sitting with my family for dinner. He and my father bonded over baseball and politics. My mother adored him after he offered to help with the dishes, something no man in those days ever did. "He seems good," my father admitted after a while. "But go slow, daughter. A man's best side comes out first. Don't assume it's the only side he has." Oh, if only I'd listened. The first 6 months, David was every bit the prince from those romance novels. Flowers from the roadside. Love notes tucked into my books. Gentle kisses and nothing more. "I want to do things right," he'd tell me. "You deserve a man who respects you." And of course I believed him. Why wouldn't I? I had only ever known my father's kindness. A year later he proposed. Everyone saw it coming. My parents threw a simple party at our house. Cake, soda, laughter. My father gave a short speech, his voice thick with emotion. "I raised her to give to the world," he said, gripping David's shoulder. "Now I hand my treasure to you. Take care of her as I have." "You can count on me," David promised. "I'll make her the happiest woman alive." We set the wedding for 6 months later. While I prepared my trousseau and dreamed about our little rental home, my mother quietly reminded me, "Even married, remember, your body is yours. A man who loves you will never cross that line." Advice I would soon learn meant little to the man I was marrying. We wed in January of 1972. I was 20, David was 27. I walked down the aisle of the First Baptist Church in a dress sewn by my mother and aunts, my father's arm steady at my side. David stood waiting in a rented suit, beaming at me like I was the only woman on earth. I thought I'd found forever. Our honeymoon was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. A simple inn near the mountains, luxury for people like us. For the first few days, David was tender, patient with my inexperience. But by the third night, his tone shifted. "My wife has to satisfy me the way I want," he demanded, forcing me into things I wasn't comfortable with. I cried quietly, then told myself this was just part of being married. When we came back, life fell into a rhythm. Cooking for two, teaching, his work at the furniture store. But then the little things began. Complaints about dinner, questions about my coworkers, criticism of my clothes. "That skirt's too short for a married woman. Why wear lipstick for school kids? Who's that man who talks to you after class?" That man was our 70-year-old janitor, but jealousy doesn't care about reason. When I became pregnant, I was overjoyed. David seemed happy too, promising he'd be the best father. For a brief moment, he returned to the man I fell for. But 3 months in, I lost the baby. And with it, the little warmth left in him. "You should have taken better care of yourself," he snapped. "You lost my son through carelessness." I cried alone in the bathroom that night, running the faucet so he wouldn't hear. By the next pregnancy, I did everything by the book. Rest, less work, vitamins. Still, I lost the baby in the 5th month. On the drive home, he spat the words I'll never forget. "Normal women don't lose babies like this. Something's wrong with you." And when I finally pushed back, when I told him his cruelty was part of the problem, he slapped me so hard I tasted blood. That was the first strike. And once it happens once, it never stops. I thought about leaving, but shame weighed me down. What would people think? A wife who couldn't hold her marriage together? A failure? So I stayed. My first mistake of many. By the 3rd year, David lost his job, some nonsense about money missing from the till. He swore innocence, but I knew the look in his eyes when he lied. He stayed unemployed for months, and that's when everything began to collapse. After David lost his job, I became the one carrying the household with my small teacher's salary. It barely covered groceries, rent, and the bare minimum. And while I worked harder, he drank more. What had once been just a beer with friends turned into bottles of whiskey alone. By noon, he was already stumbling. By night, he was a storm. Drunk, he was unbearable. Criticism became insults. Slaps turned into fists. I started showing up to work with black eyes and split lips. And every time I had to invent another excuse, tripping down the stairs, bumping into a cabinet door. The kind of lies people nod at because pretending is easier than getting involved. My parents lived only a few streets away, and they began to notice. My mother asked me outright one day, catching me crying in the kitchen, "Margaret, if something's wrong, you know you can always come home." "It's nothing, Mom," I told her. "Just a rough patch. It'll pass." But it didn't pass. It only spiraled deeper. Around that time I grew close to my neighbor Marcia. She was about 5 years older than me, newly divorced, with long blonde hair and a way of dressing that always looked polished, even just around the house. She worked the cash register at the supermarket and lived alone next door. First, she was like an angel. She brought me cookies, asked if I needed help, sat with me when she saw me crying in the yard. She became my friend, my secret keeper. "He's hitting you," she said softly one afternoon. "That's not normal, honey. You've got to get out." "I can't, Marcia. I have nowhere to go." "Yes, you do," she urged. "You're young, beautiful, smart. You deserve more than this." David hated our friendship. He sneered that she was a loose woman who dragged me down with her. I defended her, saying she was the only real friend I had left. What I didn't know was that while I was teaching, David and Marcia were getting closer in ways I couldn't imagine. The signs were all there. A matchbook from a bar across town. "He never went that far to drink. Tried a new place," he said when I asked. "What, now you want to control where I drink to?" Another time a strange, heavy perfume clung to his shirt. "Some woman on the bus bumped into me," he snapped. "Stop being paranoid." I ignored it. Or maybe I just didn't want to face the truth, that on top of everything else he was cheating. For months later, David found a job at a hardware store. Paid less, but at least it was steady. And for a short while things seemed better. He drank less, smiled more, even wore cologne again. "You're different," I told him one morning. "More lively. Maybe things are turning around for us. Maybe we'll even try for another baby." Even after everything, I still dreamed of holding a child in my arms. Foolish maybe, but the hope never left me. Then came May 15, 1975. A date carved into my memory forever. It was a rainy Friday. School let out early because the roof was leaking, so I came home sooner than expected. I unlocked the door and heard laughter. A woman's laughter. From our bedroom. My blood turned to ice. I knew. I already knew. But nothing prepared me for the sight when I cracked the door open. David and Marcia in our bed. The bed I slept in every night. I closed the door without a sound. Sat in the kitchen staring at nothing, hollow inside. Half an hour later I heard the back door creak. Marcia slipped out quietly. David strolled out of the bedroom whistling. When he saw me sitting there he froze. "What are you doing home? Rain let us out early." I saw the flicker in his eyes the second he realized I knew. "Did you see something?" he asked, his voice sharpening. "I saw everything. You and Marcia. In our bed." I expected him to scream, to deny, maybe even to hit me right then. Instead he laughed. Laughed like it was a joke. "And what are you going to do? Huh? Who are you gonna tell?" "I'm leaving, David. It's over." The laughter vanished. His face twisted into something dark. His eyes narrowing like a predator. "You're not leaving. You're my wife. You'll leave when I say you can." "I'm not property," I whispered. "It's over." I tried to pass him, but he blocked me. His body like a wall of flesh and rage. He shoved me back into the chair. "You're not going anywhere," he growled. "The house is rented, David. It's not yours. And I'm not yours either. Let me go." That's when his fist connected with my face. The first blow, then another to my stomach. I fell to my knees, gasping for air, my vision spinning. He yanked me up by the hair and slammed me against the wall. "You want to know why I was with Marcia?" he snarled. "Because she's a real woman. Not cold like you. Not barren like you. You can't even give me a child. Worthless." The words cut deeper than his fists. He punched, slapped, kicked. Over and over until my body stopped registering pain. I curled on the floor, praying it would end. When he finally stopped, I was sprawled on the kitchen tiles. Blood trickling from my nose and mouth, one eye swollen shut. He stood over me, chest heaving, then spat beside my head. "If you ever try to leave me again, I'll kill you. Got it?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. "Got it?" he roared, kicking me in the ribs. "I understand," I whispered. He grabbed his keys and wallet. I'm going out. When I get back, I want dinner ready. And fix that face, it's ugly. And just like that, he walked out, leaving me broken on the floor. I don't know how long I lay there before I forced myself up. Every breath burned. Every movement was agony. But I knew if I stayed, he would kill me. Somehow I crawled to the phone. I thought of calling my parents, but I knew my father would kill David and end up in prison. The police? Back then, they didn't care about domestic disputes. So I called the only person I trusted, my sister Lois. Lois, help me, I whispered, choking on sobs. David, he hurt me bad. My God, Margaret. Stay put, I'm coming. 15 minutes later, Lois and her husband, John, burst in. John lifted me off the floor like I was a child. Good Lord, he muttered. We're taking you to the hospital. No, I begged. He'll find me there. Please take me to your house. Lois ran to gather some of my clothes. She came back pale. John, there's blood on their bed. A lot of it. And it's not hers. I shivered. What had David done to Marcia? They took me to their modest little house. Their 2 children stared wide-eyed until Lois hushed them and sent them outside. She cleaned my cuts, pressed ice to the bruises, handed me painkillers. How long has this been happening, Margaret? She whispered. I broke then. I sobbed harder than I ever had in my life and poured out everything. The abuse, the miscarriages, the cheating, the lies. Why didn't you leave? Lois cried. Why endure this shame? I thought I could fix it. I thought he'd change. John shook his head at the doorway. Men like that don't change. They only get worse. I spent the night there, drifting in and out of a medicated sleep. By morning, my face was so swollen I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Lois convinced me to file a report. We limped into the police station, me wearing dark glasses to hide the worst. The officer scribbled notes with the expression of a man who had heard it all 1,000 times before. Ma'am, do you want to press charges against your husband? Yes. You know he might get arrested. Is that really what you want? You'll ruin his life. Ruin his life? What about mine? But I bit down my rage. Yes. I want to press charges. The doctor's report was long. Severe bruising, a split eyebrow needing stitches, 2 cracked ribs, head trauma, kidney injury. He leaned close and whispered, if you go back to him, he'll kill you next time. I didn't go back. I stayed with Lois while the police searched for David. 3 days later, the news came. He had disappeared, clothes, documents, everything gone. My brother-in-law called him what he was. A coward. But there was still something unresolved. Marcia. She was gone too. Nobody had seen her since that day. Then on the 4th day, David's boss came to see me. Sorry to disturb you, Mrs. Lee, but David disappeared without picking up his last paycheck. And Marcia, she's missing too. They ran off together, I said, my voice flat. Maybe. But before he vanished, he took an advance and loaded cement, lime, and tools into her car. I thought it was strange. Cement, lime, tools, and the blood on the bed. A chill ripped through me. Weeks passed. My bruises began to heal. My parents, who had been away tending to my sick aunt, returned and wept when they heard everything. You should have told us sooner, my father said, his eyes wet. After the first slap, I would have taken you out. I was ashamed, I whispered. Disappointed? Never. The only disappointment is the man we misjudged. I moved back into my childhood bedroom, piecing my life together. For a while it felt like maybe I'd have peace again. Until the knock came. The police. Mrs. Lee, we found your husband. My blood turned cold. Where? At a small property Marcia owned outside town. They led me there. Yellow tape, policemen digging, neighbors whispering. And then I saw Marcia's body half buried in a shallow grave, covered in a poor mix of cement and lime. She had been beaten to death. David had killed her. When the police arrived, he tried to flee armed. Shots were fired. He didn't make it out alive. They told me they had planned to run away together. He'd brought those tools to fix up the place for their new life. But when they fought, his violence turned deadly. The neighbors had heard screams but kept to themselves, until the smell days later forced them to call. I should have felt hatred toward Marcia. She betrayed me, stole my trust, slept with my husband. but all I could feel was sorrow. In the end, Marcia met the same David I had known. The monster behind the mask. Only she paid for it with her life. The town papers had a field day. Crime of passion ends in tragedy. My name was plastered everywhere. My wedding photo printed side by side with a grainy image of her body being carried from the property. Overnight, I became the murderer's widow. Walking through town was unbearable. People stared, whispered, crossed the street when they saw me. Parents pulled their children out of my class. They didn't want the killer's wife teaching their little ones. A week later, the principal called me into his office. He looked down at his hands the whole time. "Margaret, you know I think the world of you. But the parents are demanding it. The school can't keep you." And just like that, I lost the job I loved, the career I had built, the purpose that had kept me alive. All because of a man I never should have let into my life. I sank into a deep depression. I didn't leave my room. I barely ate. My parents grew desperate, calling doctors, pastors, even a faith healer. Nothing pulled me out. I drowned in guilt. What if I had seen the truth about David sooner? What if I'd reported that first slap? Would Marcia still be alive? "It wasn't your fault," my mother whispered daily. It was his, only his. But I couldn't believe her. It was my father who finally broke through the fog. One Sunday in September, he came into my room holding 2 bus tickets. "Where to?" I asked, my voice hoarse from crying. "Louisville," he said. "Big city by the Ohio River. Far from here." "Why 2 tickets?" "One for me, one for you. We're starting over. Your mother will stay with Lois for now, then join us when we're settled. But you and I were leaving." And so, with 2 small suitcases and more courage than I thought I had, I left Pikeville on October 10, 1975. 24 years old. Widowed. Branded by violence. But still alive. The bus ride was 12 long hours. I stared out the window the whole time, watching the red hills and coal mountains fade into the flat sprawl of the city. "Look," my father said as we crossed the bridge into downtown. "That's the Ohio River. Isn't it beautiful?" It was. Wide blue dotted with boats, the city rising against the horizon. In that moment I felt something I hadn't in months: hope. We arrived with nothing but determination. For a few days we stayed at a cheap boarding house. My father went out every morning, returned late at night, tired but upbeat. "There's work here, daughter. Plenty of work. The port's hiring." Within weeks, he had a job as a construction helper. He rented us a tiny room in Butchertown. Just 1 bed, 1 stove, 1 window that overlooked a sliver of the Ohio River. That view became my lifeline. On sleepless nights I sat at the window watching lights flicker on the water, dreaming of places where nobody knew my name. "You need fresh air," my father insisted. "Come to the waterfront with me on Sundays." Slowly, I let him pull me back into the world. We walked barefoot along the sand, the water washing away some of my fear. It was there that I met Lena, a funnel cake vendor with a booming laugh and eyes that saw straight through me. "You're carrying too much weight, girl," she said one day, handing me a warm cake. "You weren't meant to carry so much." Something inside me cracked. Right there in front of her customers, I broke down sobbing. Lena didn't flinch. She guided me to a bench, rubbed my back and told me, "Cry it out. All of it. Then we'll talk." And I did. I poured out everything: David, the abuse, Marcia, the deaths, the shame. When I finished, she took my hands in hers. "You survived. Do you know what that means? You're stronger than all of it. You're a survivor." I had never thought of myself that way. She offered me a job at her small diner in Haymarket. "Come work with me. You need purpose again." My father was wary until he met Lena and her husband, Samuel. Their kindness won him over. By January 1976, I was working at the diner, washing dishes, clearing tables, ringing up orders. At first, every noise made me jump. Every man's raised voice made me flinch. But Lena kept reminding me, "One day at a time, child. Today is just today. Tomorrow's another." With her patience, I began to heal. Soon my mother joined us in Louisville. We rented a bigger apartment in Portland, 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a little stove. Luxury compared to what we'd had. She filled it with plants, embroidery, and the smell of homemade bread. She brought home with her. The nightmares eased. The knot in my chest loosened. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. At the Haymarket, I found not just work but community. Dock workers who told river tales. Old women selling herbs. Homeless folks who always had a place at Leonard's counter. And children. So many children skipping school to help their parents. I started teaching them with whatever scraps I could find. Chalk on cardboard, seashells for math. Are you a real teacher? Little Timmy asked one day. I used to be, I said softly. Why do you stop? Because sometimes life takes away what we love most. Then why don't you take it back? That question lit a fire in me. Why not? David was gone. My shame was buried. Nothing stood in my way but fear. That night I told my parents, I want to go back to school. I want to be a teacher again. My father smiled wide. Then that's what you'll be. I worked by day, studied by night. At 26, I passed the entrance exam for the University of Louisville's education program. I was older than most, but I didn't care. University opened my world, new ideas, new methods, new hope. I kept teaching at the market, now with better tools, better confidence. The kids thrived. By 1979, in my final year, I interned at a public school in Smoketown. 30 children, most behind, some never taught at all. The classroom was broken, overcrowded, hot. But to me it was a palace. Good morning. I'm Miss Margaret, I told them. And I believe in you more than you believe in yourselves. By year's end, 28 of them were reading. The principal was so impressed, he promised me a job once I graduated. That December at 28, I walked across the stage in cap and gown. My parents wept with pride. Leonard and Samuel brought pastries for everyone. My classmates chose me as speaker. I told them, it's never too late to begin again. It's never too late to become who you were meant to be. For the first time in years, my life felt whole. The past was still there, but it no longer bled. And then, one March afternoon in 1980, the past knocked on my door. I was teaching when the principal called me out. A woman stood in the hall, her hair gray, her face worn by years. Margaret, she said softly. I'm Nancy, David's sister. The world stopped. The name I had buried for 5 years cut through me like glass. What do you want? I asked, my voice trembling. We need to talk. It's about my nephew. David didn't have children. Not with you. With Marcia. The air left my lungs. She was pregnant when she died, Nancy continued. She had the baby first, left him with my mother when she went to meet David that night. No one knew. Not even the police. And why come to me now? My mother passed last month. The boy's been with me, but I'm sick. Cancer. I can't care for him anymore. Legally, you're the next of kin. I stared at her. You're asking me to take in the son of the man who almost killed me. The woman he betrayed me with. She lowered her eyes. I know it's asking a lot. But the boy isn't guilty. He's just a child. He's 4 years old. My throat tightened. Where is he? In the car. Do you want to meet him? Every part of me screamed no. I wanted to run, to disappear, to erase the past. But something stronger made me whisper. Yes. We walked to the parking lot. An old car sat beneath a tree. Inside, a man waved from the driver's seat. And in the back, a little boy peered through the window. He was small for his age, with dark hair and wide, searching eyes. When he saw me, he smiled. And in that smile, I saw a face I knew all too well. That smile, so much like the one that once drew me in on David's face, lit up little Lucas's eyes. Aunt Nancy, who's that lady? He asked, curious. She's a friend, Lucas, Nancy said gently. A friend who's going to take care of you for a few days. Days. That's what her mouth said. But her eyes told me something different. I can't, I whispered so the boy wouldn't hear. It's too much for me. He has no one else, Nancy pleaded. If not you, it'll be an orphanage. Why not Marcia's family? I pressed. I tried. None of them would take him. Her father said his grandson died the day she did. I looked at Lucas again. For a moment I didn't see David. I didn't even see Marcia. I just saw a scared little boy, confused and on the verge of losing what little stability he had. Give me time to think. I don't have time, Nancy said, her voice breaking. My chemo starts tomorrow. I can't care for him like this. One day. Please just give me one day. She hesitated, then nodded. I'll come back tomorrow. If you say no, I'll go straight to social services. That night I didn't sleep. I walked the riverfront until dawn, talking to the water, to the stars, to every ghost that still haunted me. How could I raise David's child? How could I look at his face every day and not see the man who tried to destroy me? But then again, how could I condemn an innocent child to grow up without family, without love? I knew too well what it was like to be branded by a story you didn't choose. The next morning at school, I looked at my students. Children who'd taught me so much about forgiveness and fresh starts. Children who reminded me daily that scars didn't have to define the future. My thoughts kept drifting back to Lucas. Just a boy who didn't ask for any of this. During break, I called my parents. I need to tell you something. I began bracing for shock. I told them everything. Bring him home, my mother said simply. What? Mom, he's David's son. So what? He's still a child. He's not responsible for who his parents were. If he's your son, he's our grandson too. That afternoon, when Nancy returned, I already knew my answer. I'll keep him, I said. Tears filled her eyes as she handed me a folder of papers, birth certificate, vaccination records, a few photographs. Thank you. I know I don't deserve this from you. Lucas stepped closer, cautious. I bent down to his level. Hi, Lucas. Remember me? I'm Margaret. Am I going to live with you? You are. There's a park near my house. Do you like parks? His little eyes lit up. I do. Grandma never took me. Right then, I made the most important decision of my life. The past would not dictate my future or his. We brought Lucas home that very day. My parents welcomed him with open arms, no hesitation, no judgment. My mother had already prepared a room with old toys she kept for reasons she couldn't explain. Come in, sweetheart. Want some chocolate cake? I baked it the way kids like. At first he was shy, but soon he melted under their affection. That night, as I listened to his steady breathing from the next room, I realized life had handed me not just a chance to heal myself, but to break the cycle of pain that David had carried. I would be a mother, different from anything I had known, but determined to do it right. The first months weren't easy. Lucas missed Nancy. He cried at night, confused by the new home, the new family. I had to learn to mother overnight at 29, to a 4-year-old boy with a past heavier than he could carry. Why doesn't Aunt Nancy come get me? He asked almost daily. She's sick, honey. She's in the hospital to get better. And when she gets better, will I leave? The fear in his eyes shattered me. No, Lucas. This is your home. Forever. Explaining was a daily challenge. How could I tell him his father killed his mother? That his aunt was dying? That now I was his mother by choice, not by blood? So I told him what he could handle. Your mom and dad had to go to heaven. Before they left, they asked me to care for you. It wasn't the full truth, but it was close enough to give him peace. I enrolled him in school, bought him books and clothes, rearranged my work to spend more time at home. My parents filled in when I taught. We made it work. Months later, Nancy passed. The cancer moved faster than anyone expected. I told Lucas gently, your Aunt Nancy is in heaven too with your parents. He cried, but less than I feared. He was already rooted in our family, already calling me Aunt Margaret with love. In July 1980, I made it official. I filed to adopt him. The lawyer assured me it would be simple. When the judge asked if I was certain, I looked at Lucas playing quietly in the corner, oblivious to the life-changing moment. I'm more certain of this than anything I've ever done, I said. That October, he became Lucas Wilson, my son-in-law, as he already was in my heart. Raising him alone in the 80s wasn't easy. Every dollar was stretched thin. I taught extra classes at night, gave tutoring on weekends. But every sacrifice was worth it when I saw him growing healthy, curious, and safe. In 1982, I was promoted to coordinator at my school. Mom, are you a boss now? Lucas asked wide-eyed. Not exactly, I laughed. I just help teachers do better. Like when I help you with your lessons. Oh, but I'm still your favorite student, right? Always. His grin lit up my world. How could a child born from so much darkness bring me so much light? That same year we bought our first house. Small 2 bedrooms, a patch of yard where I planted flowers like the ones my mother grew back in Pikeville. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Lucas grew fast. By 8, he was filling notebooks with drawings. Animals, people, whole worlds out of his imagination. Where does he get this talent? I asked my mother one day. Maybe from his mother, she said. Maybe so. I knew little about Marcia, but sometimes I thought Lucas carried pieces of her in his gentle creativity. In 1985, I met Anthony, a math teacher newly transferred from Tennessee. Calm, kind, endlessly patient. He noticed me during breaks, but what struck me was how he treated others, how he listened without judgment, how he helped quietly without fanfare. When Lucas had an emergency appendectomy, Anthony showed up at the hospital. I thought you might need something, clothes, food. I'll wait with you until your parents arrive. No one should wait alone. He stayed. He talked. He eased the long night. And when Lucas came out safe, he was still there. That small act grew into dinners, into outings, into quiet affection. I was scared, so scared, but Anthony never rushed me. He was patient, gentle, steady. In 1987, after 2 years, he asked me to marry him. Not in a grand gesture, but in our kitchen with Lucas at the table. Margaret, he said. Lucas, I want to ask something. Can we be a family for real? Lucas answered before I could. Will you be my dad? Anthony smiled. If you want me to. If your mom agrees. Lucas turned to me anxious. Yes, I whispered, tears spilling. Let's be a family. We married in a small ceremony. Lucas, proud in his little suit, served as best man. My father gave me away again, this time certain it was right. Anthony moved into our home like he had always belonged. The first time Lucas called him dad was during a backyard soccer game. Anthony froze, looked at me for approval, then smiled. I see, son. Well done. Lucas ran to hug him, and I knew then our family was whole. In 1988, I was offered the principal position at a struggling elementary school. I doubted myself, but Anthony reassured me. If anyone can turn that place around, it's you. And he was right. In 3 years we transformed it. Lowered dropouts, raised literacy, built a garden, opened a library. The community called it New Hope. At 39, when I thought life had given me all it could, I found out I was pregnant. Doctors once said it would never happen. Yet there it was. Amy was born in June 1991. Lucas, 14, was thrilled but nervous. You won't love her more than me, will you? Never, I promised. You were my first child. I chose you. Nothing changes that. He believed me. He became the most protective big brother I'd ever seen. Life finally felt complete. Until in 1992, when Lucas turned 16, he asked the question I had dreaded for years. Mom, he said quietly, I need to know the truth about my real father. My heart stopped. I saw the name David Thompson on my birth certificate. I looked him up. I found the old articles. I sat down, my legs weak. The moment I had avoided for 12 years had finally come. It's true, Lucas, I whispered. But it's more complicated than the headlines told. And so I told him. All of it. The whole story, with no sugarcoating, no hiding. He had a right to the truth, however painful it was. I told Lucas about how David first charmed me, about our marriage, the first blows, the miscarriages, his drinking, his drifting in and out of jobs. I told him about Marcia, the betrayal, the night I nearly lost my life at David's hands. I told him about the property where the police found the bodies, about how years later Nancy appeared carrying him as a baby, and about the choice that changed everything, the day I decided to be his mother. He listened in silence, tears sliding down a face that was already beginning to look more like a man's than a boy's. So I'm the son of a monster, he finally whispered, voice breaking. No, Lucas. You're my son, I said, holding his gaze. You belong to the one who raised you, loved you, and taught you. But his blood runs in me. What if I turn out like him? What if one day I... Never. I cut him off. You will never be him. Do you know why? Because you were raised with love and respect. You've been given values he never had. David didn't grow up with that. You did. How can you be sure? Because I've watched you for 12 years. I see how you care for your sister, how you treat girls at school, how you stand up for kids who struggle. Your character is already set, son. And it's beautiful. He broke then, sobbing in my arms the way he used to when nightmares woke him in the dark. But this nightmare wasn't a dream. It was his past. His bloodline. Thank you for wanting me, Mom, he choked out. Even after everything he did. Taking me in was the best decision you ever made. It saved me as much as it saved you, I told him. And it was the truth. Lucas gave me purpose when I had none. Taught me to trust again, to love again, to believe that broken things could still be mended. That night, when Anthony came home with Amy, I told him what had happened. As always, he understood. I'll talk to him, Anthony said. Man to man. The two of them sat outside under the stars for hours. I don't know exactly what Anthony said, but when they came back inside, Lucas looked lighter, calmer. Dad says he wants to adopt me officially, Lucas said later. So I can have his name too. Can I? Of course, I smiled. If that's what you both want. I do. I want to be a Parker like you. In 1993, it became official. Lucas Wilson legally became Lucas Wilson Parker. His name carried both halves of his story, the mother who chose him and the father who claimed him. Life carried on. Lucas graduated high school with honors, earning a scholarship to study architecture. His gift for drawing becoming his calling. Amy grew into a bright, lively girl with endless questions about the world. In 1996, at 45, I was honored with Kentucky Educator of the Year. I stood on stage and said, "This isn't just my award. It belongs to every child who dared to believe, every teacher who refused to give up, every parent who trusted education." Lucas and Amy sat in the audience glowing with pride. Anthony recorded the moment with the new camera he'd given me for our anniversary. On the way home, Lucas, 20 by then, said something that still lives in me. "When I grow up, Mom, I want to be like you. Someone who changes lives." "You already have, son," I told him. "You changed mine." The girl who once ran from Pikeville battered and broken was now a woman who had not just survived, but built something lasting. By my 70s, I looked back and saw how even the most painful chapters had shaped me. Life can shatter us, but we choose how to piece ourselves back together. The past influences us, but it doesn't decide our future. Forgiveness, especially forgiving ourselves, is the hardest road, but also the one that frees us. And family isn't blood. It's built from daily choices, from staying, from loving when it would be easier to walk away. I look at my hands now, wrinkled, veined, spotted by time. These hands once trembled in fear, but now move with certainty. They've held chalk in crowded classrooms, wiped tears from children, held my babies close, tended flowers, brushed against the face of the man who healed me. The 2000s came. Lucas thrived as an architect in Louisville. Amy finished high school dreaming of becoming a doctor. I remained principal at the school I'd rebuilt, while Anthony worked in the Department of Education. Together we launched new projects, libraries, gardens, community programs, because money wasn't the only resource we had. Willpower was worth more. In 2002, Lucas married Jennifer, a fellow architecture student. A beach wedding, barefoot in the sand, open-hearted vows. The day before, he said, "Mom, everything I know about love, I learned from you." That same year, Amy was accepted into medical school, 6th overall. I cried when the letter came. My little girl, now on her way to becoming a doctor. In 2005, at 54, I faced breast cancer. Surgery, radiation, hair loss, fatigue. Anthony was terrified, but I was steady. "I've faced worse," I told him. And I had. My family rallied around me, Lucas and Jennifer bringing meals, Amy digging through research, my aging parents cooking soup. 6 months later, remission. Life once again. I returned to school with new energy, starting a student garden of medicinal herbs. "Is Mrs. Parker a doctor now?" the kids teased. "No," I smiled. "I just know taking care of the body is as important as feeding the mind." In 2007, Lucas and Jennifer had their first child, Peter. When I held that tiny boy, warm and perfect, I whispered, "I'm your grandma. I've got so many stories waiting for you." Amy graduated in 2008 and chose pediatrics. "I want to heal kids like you always did, Mom, but with medicine." In 2010, I retired. Almost 20 years as principal, but I knew it was time to pass the torch. Retirement gave me new freedom, time to travel with Anthony, time with grandchildren, time to visit Amy during residency, and finally time to return to Pikeville. I went back in 2012 at 61. Walked the streets, saw the house that was now a shop, the church where I'd married David, the places that once haunted me. And for the first time I didn't feel the weight. The ghosts were gone. I left flowers on my in-laws' graves and whispered, "Rest in peace." I hold no grudge. By 2015 at 64 I buried both my parents. First my mother, then my father 8 months later, two souls who had been together so long that even death couldn't keep them apart. We kept their apartment, turning it into a free literacy center for adults. It was the best way I knew to honor them. In 2018, Amy married Richard, a kind anesthesiologist who steadied her fiery spirit. Lucas and Jennifer welcomed their third child, a daughter they named Dorothy. After me? I asked, stunned. Yes, Lucas said. We want her to carry the name of the strongest woman we know. In 2020, the pandemic forced the world into isolation. At 69, I learned technology fast, video calls, online teaching, recording stories for my grandchildren. Lucas nudged me. Mom, why not share your story with more people? Folks need hope. So I did. Nervously, awkwardly, I posted my first video. And to my surprise, people watched. They thanked me. They wanted more. Soon Grandma's Tales became a regular channel. Recipes, gardening tips, reflections on life, lessons from the classroom. And now at 73 I've finally shared the whole truth. Not for pity, not for praise, but to show that even in the deepest dark, there's still light to be found. If you've listened this far, thank you. This story wasn't easy to tell, and it probably wasn't easy to hear. But I believe in the power of stories. They heal, they connect, they remind us we're not alone. So remember, your story doesn't end on your worst day. The last page hasn't been written yet. As long as there's breath, there's still the chance for new chapters, for unexpected twists, for endings more beautiful than you can imagine. From a broken girl in Pikeville to a grandmother on YouTube, who could have predicted it? Not me. But here I am. And here you are. With love from Margaret Wilson Parker. 73 years old. Retired teacher. Mother. Grandmother. Survivor. Living proof that love always wins.